Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And this is another exciting moment for us. I'm with my colleague here, Johnny. We are launching Esri Newsroom. Just kidding. It is quite an important time for us as Esri to allow our users to be the ones who are sharing their stories. So this is another opportunity for that, and thank you for joining us and listening to what the other presenters will be sharing today. This is quite an impressive moment for us. We always get excited about it. So for today's mark, it's going to be still following the same trend as the previous one, for those who are attending the previous one. So this one will still maintain almost the same thing. I know today, Johnny, because of you joining us, we ended up starting a bit earlier than last time. Last time we started at 9. This time we started a bit early. Sorry to wake you guys up early, but I believe you will enjoy this mark. Just for quick housekeeping, all participants who are joining us will be muted and their videos will be off. If you cannot see the full screen, let's say you want to increase the frame, you can actually right-click on the slide and select Fit to Frame. So you can do that. Also, we would love a very positive participation from all participants. So we will encourage you to actually use the Q&A function where you can ask questions at any stage. So it's always best when someone is presenting, you can drop a question as it comes along, and then we'll provide answers at the end of the meeting. And then if you have anything that you would want to bring across, please raise your hand if you would like to ask the question or comment verbally in the session. The meeting is recorded, so some are already joining this meeting via YouTube. So for those who would be interested to share it later, you will be able to do so. So today's session, we have 4 presentations. We plan to have 4 presentations, but unfortunately, one of our presenters from Pivot Systems or IPS Technologies is still stuck in Guinea. He was hoping to be in a better connection for this meeting, so please do excuse him, and we hope he will be able to join us in our next mark. But other presenters will continue as planned. It will be Dion, and then from Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, and Warwick from Anglo-American, and then the last one will be Johnny Angelites from South Africa, who will be sharing his side of the story. So as the topic says, fostering environmental, social and governance standards. We see this as quite an interesting topic to really dive into, especially at this time, as we've been seeing across the mining news that this is actually one of the key elements that mining executives or mining companies are looking at to actually try and meet all the goals that the company has. And I've been hearing companies talking about stewardship around the ESG. So this topic is quite exciting, and I believe you will really enjoy it when our presenters will be sharing their stories, and you will see value and maybe excite you to think of other opportunities that you can start exploiting. I know, Johnny, you already have something to also come in before we introduce our speakers for today.
Yes. We'll start off with the first audience poll. So you'll see the question pop up on your screen, and then you can select the answer that best describes you. So the first one is just to get an indication of how your current activities are contributing to ESG. We'll give you 30 seconds to answer, and then the results will start to come in, and we'll give you some feedback on what the answers are. So please go ahead and select one. I believe the other polls will have a few multiple choice in them. This one, you'll only have one option. So just keep note of, you will be able to choose more than one for the other 2 polls. Okay, just a few more seconds. The results are going to start coming in. Let's give it another 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting one.
All right, so the results are in, and wow, half of the people attending said that they're partially contributing to ESG. So at least 50% of you will be familiar with some of the concepts that we'll talk about today. And surprisingly, 21% are not contributing at all to ESG. We can only assume, I suppose, that those are people that are not in those departments.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, thank you for joining, though. It's always nice maybe to have contributions for people that are not involved in the subject matter we are talking about.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Jody. I think this is quite an interesting time as well, because obviously there will be some kind of learning curve in a number of other areas to our attendees today. The one thing that I can say is that we will be bringing our next speaker, who will be actually touching on what the National Department and Forestry and Fisheries and the Environment are doing in Pretoria. And then we'll actually sharing some of the insights on the screening tool they're using there. So the speaker is Dion Marais. He has been working with the department, the National Department, I think from 1994, if I'm not mistaken, or much more than that. And Dion is a geographer. He is registered with the professional body that is under SA Geomatics Council. He is currently in the Directorate of Spatial Information Management. Dion is part of the team that assisted in the planning and the rollout of the national web-based environmental screening tool. So Dion, over to you. Please share your story with us. Thank you.
Good morning, all. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today and to be part of the session. I think I just quickly would like to latch onto Spiwe's introductory comments, and thank you for that, Spiwe. Yes, I'm a geographer. I'm also a GIS professional and in the department, as you indicated, since 1994. And during this period, being involved in GIS and the screening tool per se, the development of the screening tool, the rollout of the screening tool, it was really exciting times. And I just wanted to comment that I'm not an environmental assessment practitioner or an EIA professional at all, but it would be great to just quickly share with you how the screening tool then actually fits into the whole EIA process. And thank you for this opportunity. So I'm going to dig in directly. On the screen, you can see the Department Forestry, Fisheries and Environment webpage. And on this specific page, we added a button which houses the URL to the National Environmental Screening Tool. So it's as easy as that to actually access the National Environmental Screening Tool. By activating the National Environmental Screening Tool, you will actually immediately go to a landing page. And I just quickly want to flag one or two aspects on this page. Firstly, there's a screening tool assistance button or link at the bottom. For those people that's using the screening tool and would like to know more or get stuck with the screening tool, the functionality of the screening tool, kindly use that email address link. Just below it, the EIA process query link. That's the link that can be used by people that get stuck or would like to learn a little bit more about the EIA process and competent authorities, listed activities, and those types of questions. And then just in the middle of the web page, also note that there's a help button. There's quite an extensive help on the screening tool, which you can access at any stage while in the screening tool. And then also the webinar. There's a YouTube webinar available, which is actually a training session. It's about 2 hours. So this is a very concise session this morning, but would you like to know a little bit more about the screening tool and its functionality? Obviously, the webinar will be of great assistance. And then at the bottom, the EIA process queries is a PDF document that links you to the 11 competent authorities and their contact details. the 9 provinces, as well as the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, as well as DMR. And then also some Gazette notices, the Gazette notice that was published in the Gazette that made the screening tool compulsory use. So once you actually agree to the terms and conditions, click on the next button, you will actually see the 6 important steps in using the screening tool. Firstly, you will have to select a national sector classification category. So because listing notice has a whole array of activities, you need to actually apply your mind and then translate an activity into one of these national sector classification categories in the screening tool. If I remember correctly, there's about 76 classifications that can be selected from. The second step will then to identify a site, the backbone of the screening tool being the SG cadastre. Once you identified and created a site, you simply check the site sensitivity, and then you can actually create a site screening tool report at this point in time. I quite often advise applicants or users to do that specifically for the reason that the screening tool document is quite a handy discussion document going forward. But would you like to actually apply a footprint or add a development footprint to the system? You can proceed to do as such. So this will typically be, let's say, for example, in the first 3 steps, I identified a certain farm portion where I would like to perform a sand mining activity. One could actually identify the farm portion and then proceed to actually identify a specific footprint for the sand mining activity. And we call this to actually apply the impact avoidance hierarchy and have less impact on the environment. And then also check the sensitivity of the footprint and then generate a report. So those are the 6 simple steps of this process. One can, on this next screen, the National Sector Classification category, one could actually have a drop down and peruse the different development types. Because this is a MUG session, I'm going to focus on the 10 mining options that we have. And for this purpose, I'm going to select a mining prospecting rights classification. So by selecting that, it helps me and guides me to populate the following drop-down options. So I'm going to select mining as my main development type, and then the subsection will be prospecting rights, and then it activates a general related methodology. There are different methodologies in the system, but this basically just indicates that for this classification, mining prospecting rights, the system then selected from the wide range of data sets or layers that's available in the screening tool, the relevant ones for this specific classification category. So on the next screen, I'm just going to explain the 3 quick panes, which is the main part of this screening tool. And on the left-hand side, you've got the layer pane, which actually indicates the different layers. You will notice that by selecting the mining prospecting development type, I already have mining prospecting rights sensitivity layers, which can be expanded, switched on, switched off, and so on, and also the mining prospecting rights original data. So you've got access to a wide range of data sets that can be displayed on the map pane. There's also some measurement tools such as measuring distance and area, as well as the option to add your own data. For example, a KML file, upload CSV files, zipped shape files, or even a service URL to existing data that you can overlay onto the map pane. When focusing on the map pane itself, there's some navigation tools. You can switch the base maps and, for example, activate a satellite image as a background. I'm just going to stay with a street map for this for the moment because it's simple and it's clean. You've got the jurisdiction area of South Africa. So we're currently looking at EIA applications or sensitivity screening within this boundary. And then there's a red circle at the bottom left, which will actually host the site that you create, as well as the footprints if you would add any of those. And then on the right-hand side, you will actually notice the identify site pane. This is the important pane that we're going to focus on this morning. So the second step, I already selected a classification category. My next step would be to either search for a, I just want to move my screen here, just to search for a farm portion, maybe the cadastral SG 21-digit code, or maybe even a place name or address. And you also have the option to draw a shape on the screen. If it's a point or a line, it needs to be buffered because you need a polygon or a simple polygon or a rectangle. You can upload some coordinates, or you can upload a zipped shapefile, CSV file, or a KML file into the system. What I'm going to do this morning, I'm simply going to use farm name and then select a farm. There is some predictive text at the bottom, and I'm going to search for the farm Klein Melkbos. You can see the predictive text coming in. The farm Klein Melkbos is close to the little town Melkbosstrand, about 20 kilometers north of Cape Town. I'm going to simply select Klein Melkbos, and by then searching, it will search the Surveyor General cadastral information. It comes up with the results Klein Melkbos. You will notice that there's a parent farm, there's the remainder and portions 1 to 3. I'm simply going to double click the remainder. The system will zoom in to the relevant area where these farm portions are situated. And in this case, just always notice that you've got a blue outline here. That does not mean the site has already been created. It just means that you selected or found the relevant farm portion in the cadastral data. So what you need to do is simply select. I'm going to just filter only for farm portions. You will notice there's agricultural holdings, urban, public places, etc. But I'm going to filter on farm portions. Use one of the tools. I'm going to use the polyline tool. Just select 2 of these farm portions. You will notice that it selected portion 1. And when I click on it on the right-hand side, it flickers and highlights on the left-hand side. If I select the next one, it will actually highlight it. And now I'm ready to actually create my site. And simply by creating the site, it actually created this blue line. It adds it to my placeholder. I can even edit the geometry or the coordinates. For example, this little dangle here, I'm just going to delete that to actually simplify this area, and then check the sensitivity. Now, typically what one would do to familiarize yourself with the data is to check all sensitivities. All the data sets have now been lumped together in themes. And because we've got a short and brief session this morning, I'm just going to focus on the agriculture theme. So it will immediately activate those sensitivities. I'm zooming in a little bit. You can see the extent of the site that I created, the legend for the sensitivities, and my site currently intersects with a high, medium, and low sensitivity. I can, at this point in time, generate a site report, but I'm just quickly going to use this impact avoidance hierarchy. Place a footprint. I'm going to draw that, use a polygon option, and I'm going to actually just simply draw a footprint on the medium and low area of my screen, simply to avoid this high sensitivity on the left-hand side. Again, check the footprint sensitivity, which is step number 5 in my 6-step approach. I'm going to, again, just activate the agricultural theme. You can see the sensitivities, but what's important to notice here is that I only now have a medium and low intersection. So I immediately have a better scenario in terms of not having my sand mine activity, for example, on a high sensitivity area. I can also, at this point in time for agriculture, look at my assessment protocol and click on this protocol, and the system guides me to the relevant assessment protocols, which is color-coded and can be used in the process. I'm going to go back to the screening tool itself, and then the next step, which is the 6th step, is to generate the full report. So by clicking on full report, I can add some logos onto the front page, maybe a photograph, download the full report, and actually have all my reporting fields, the EIA reference number, if applicable, project name, title, applicant, and compiler. I'm not going to generate a report on the fly at this point in time because it may take about 6-7 odd minutes. So I'm going to jump directly to a PDF report that I already generated beforehand for the purpose of the session. So you will see the PDF document on the screen. You will notice that my reporting reference data is on the front page. There's a reference to the classification that I selected, and I've got some logos that I added. The whole report is date stamped on each page. And then you will notice I've got an interactive content page. So I'm going to click on the map of relative agricultural theme sensitivity because we focused on the agriculture to this moment. So by simply clicking there, it will lively jump to that specific map on the PDF document. You can clearly see the site outline, the specific footprint that I added, the sensitivities of the agriculture, as well as some tabular data indicating that the highest sensitivity for agriculture is medium, and then some tabular data in terms of what are those sensitivities. And then the applicant or the user can slot at their own leisure, peruse these maps. Always remember that a screening tool report does not exempt you from a site visit. It's actually a very, very handy discussion document that can be used at this point in time. And then by perusing through the different maps, one can look at sensitivities. Let's, for example, look at the map regarding the civil aviation theme. One will notice it's a high sensitivity, but it's because this site is within 8 kilometers from a civil aviation aerodrome. And one can then address this in the different reports or assessments to be done leading up to the basic assessment report. I'm just quickly going to go to the top again of this PDF document. Just below the content page, you will notice that you have some locational data, some locational maps, a summary of the cadastral data that's been intersected, the farm, parent farm, the different farm portions, the XY coordinate of the footprint, and some additional information. We are actually 25.9 kilometers from an approved solar PV site. There's no intersections with any environmental management frameworks. And then we have a live link to some other reports, such as the transmission corridor that's intersecting with the site, also the South African conservation areas, a link to that reference report, and then a summary map. And then lastly, and very importantly, a summary of all the themes and the highest sensitivities, as well as all the assessment protocols. As I indicated just now, one can now simply click on this link and access the assessment protocol. So I hope with this very, very brief introduction that I indicated to all of you how easy it is to actually access the screening tool, create a report. There's 6 simple steps, and I hope you will find this very useful and something that you can use in your day-to-day activities. Spiwe, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you very much, Dion. I really appreciate availing yourself and for sharing such an interesting story to us. We thank you for that. We're still going to have Dion at the end of this session in our Q&A session. So please, if you have any questions that may be popping, you can actually drop those questions in our Q&A box. We really encourage that. As I see, there are some already questions that have come through, so I encourage everyone to also do so. But we really thank you, Dion, for this presentation. It's really bringing into perspective of what the department is trying to do to assist the mining sector specifically, if I may focus there. I know you are touching on a number of other sectors, but it's quite exciting to see that there is this leadership that you are taking and the tools that you are providing to everyone to make use of. And that is quite exciting to see. And it actually ties it nicely as well with what the industry has been engaging in, trying to do to actually facilitate their response in terms of the ESG. As from the UN point of view, they've been pushing that we have to have goals that are focused on sustainable development. So this actually helps us in the mining sector, if I may put it that way. I hope everyone sees it that way as well from the mining companies, that this actually will help in facilitating certain activities to fast track the investment excitement in the space. And the most interesting thing as well is our next speaker, Warwick Massad. I think he has developed something internally that in a way does has some kind of capabilities that actually highlight risk areas and all that. I think Warwick, you will tell a better story than me. I know when we started engaging with you, you were pushing us in a corner in an environment where we were not so comfortable with. But we thank you for being driven on what you wanted to do. So as our next speaker is preparing to come on, Warwick has been with the Anglo-American for some time. He has 25 years of biodiversity and conservation management experience across different business units. He is actually someone who is involved in the sustainable future of mining within Anglo-American, with the main focus in finding ways that are actually making the mining to actually operate better, and also making use of our natural resources in a much more responsible manner. So his main focus has been always to formalize the stronger corporate commitment to reverse the nature loss, which is a very key area of focus when it comes to the mining sector, especially at this time. He is heavily involved in active partnerships, both from the industry and also internally, to try and share some excitement and creating an environment which allows people to participate in the work that he's doing. And he has implemented a solution within Anglo-American, which focus on the Anglo-American's ambitious targets and the commitment to net positive impact and in delivery of positive biodiversity outcomes. He started his career as a conservationist. Sorry, I know it's Warwick will correct me there, but he holds
that's fine.
Mitigation in both agriculture and wildlife management. Over to you, Warwick.
Thank you so much, Simpiwe. Appreciate the long introduction. And thank you to Esri for inviting me to give this talk. So what I'd like to highlight is just, I guess, the topic around ESG. And I think Simpiwe mentioned it just in terms of sustainability targets, and I think the requirements that companies are putting out there. This has just been shared. We recently had our annual general meeting, so I'm just putting up some of the targets there. And you'll see some of them that have already been achieved. But the ones we want to try and focus on are those for 2030, some very ambitious targets around not only in our energy and water space, but in particular, the one that I've circled there is around biodiversity and delivering a net positive impact on biodiversity in the areas in which we operate, and obviously in and around our operations. So I think that contextualizes, just how important we see this, and very important for Anglo-American to make some of those targets. I think we'll all agree globally, certainly what we've seen now, and it's an interesting sort of name or a topic that's coming out, is to be nature positive. There is a global goal for nature. It's been driven a lot now. You'll see in the lead up to the COP15 later this year in Kunming in China, there's a huge call for a nature positive approach globally, and I think this links in really nicely with our sustainability goals. We've got a commitment in there in our sustainable mining plan. Part of what we want to do is change the way that we do our business, change what we've done in the past, And by doing this, we can improve the land management practices. And ultimately, as part of our biodiversity goal, is to enhance conservation efforts, as part of our mitigation to minimize the impact that we have. As Mpiwe mentioned, and actually Dion mentioned that mitigation hierarchy approach. I think, and I hope most of you are familiar with it. Effectively, it's a hierarchy of action, or a hierarchy of control. So you obviously want to avoid as much of those sensitive sites or areas as possible. And in order to do that, you need a very early high-level picture about, where are those sensitive sites and what do we need to avoid. It's obviously a little bit, it's not as easy with a retrospective assessment. And yes, we have a lot of assets that are, have quite a lot of legacy, but we are, looking to address that. But in particular with our new projects, it's something that we can apply right from the outset. So how do we use the sort of spatial data, and importantly, how do we put this into a spatial context? We've got to look within the environment, and there are a lot, not only from a biodiversity perspective, but there are obviously challenges and requirements around climate change. We've got some carbon neutrality goals. There are requirements around looking at carbon sequestration. Obviously, we've mentioned net positive impact. And so there's a whole multiple sort of mix of these ESG targets that you have within this environment that you've got to obviously contextualize in terms of your site level strategy. You've then obviously got the land use potential, and that can vary, differently. And if we look at our Anglo portfolio from Australia to, the Northwest Territories and Canada, it varies vastly based just on soil aspect, climate, vegetation, as you can imagine. And so that the potential of what our land assets have is obviously going to be vastly different. And then you look at availability. In certain sites, we don't have effectively the tenure. In other words, we don't own the land. We might have a mining license or a prospecting application, but it might not mean that we have the actual management control of those land parcels. And in other areas we do. We are quite fortunate, certainly in South and Southern Africa, that there is a significant amount of land holdings which we do own. And ironically, often we look at a mining license area and we think that is effectively the impacted footprint, when in actual fact the footprint is quite small, and we actually have an opportunity to maximize some of the value of those non-operational land assets. Then if you add another layer onto that is, we're starting to look now at our species and habitat sensitivity. And I'll get to it a little bit later in the talk in terms of how we identify what we call a significant biodiversity feature. And that's what we then use to identify the opportunity that we can potentially deliver positive biodiversity outcomes as part of our nature positive pathway. So this led us to develop a tool, and we've called ours the Biodiversity Overlay Assessment Tool, or the BOAT for short. We partnered with Esri and the team, and it was really fantastic to get them on board and to say, this is the requirements that we have. And ironically, it's almost a sort of a subset of what Dion presented in terms of the screening tool, and in a country and in a context like South Africa, where we have some fantastic spatial data and layers available publicly, in other areas in which we operate globally, we don't have any of this. And so we needed a bespoke tool to help us visualize and pull in some of those data layers. The layers that we look at primarily are obviously biodiversity focused, so it's not necessarily to the level of detail that Dion presented in terms of EIAs, but it does look at where we or potentially are looking to, maybe get into some exploration or open up an operation, or even build some infrastructure related to an operation, and how that relates to the sensitive features. So it could be your protected areas or key biodiversity areas. And then obviously you can then pull in some of your own layers that you can visualize in this tool. So it really helped us look at that. It's a bespoke tool that obviously there is some sensitivity around some of the mining license areas. So it is only accessible to Anglo-American employees within the company, and the data is hosted on an online platform. And we're actually migrating that now to the Microsoft Azure platform, and just improve some of the functionality. What it basically does, and as I said, that's just an image and a screenshot there of one of our operations in Mpumalanga. and you'll actually see some of those layers is taken directly from the Sandby or from some of the screening layers that Dion showed. And it gives us an opportunity to map where these operations fit into in terms of some of the areas of biodiversity significance. So the mine have some of their own layers, and you'll see some of that's visualized there. And they can visualize and try and predict and model and apply some of that mitigation hierarchy in terms of avoidance of where those sensitive features and sites are. And that'll also help us identify where some of those high level risks and liabilities are. But importantly, it's also, for us to identify where there's opportunity. And so if you look at the Mpumalanga, their sort of conservation plan, they've got areas identified, in particular around habitat connectivity between protected areas. And as I said before, where we've got some land that might not necessarily be used for mining, even though it is under our, let's say, our management control, or even potentially owned, we can look to that as an opportunity to say, well, if we can get involved, we can potentially help link some of these areas that are important from a connectivity. And that's already been identified by Mpumalanga Parks and Tourism as a potential protected area expansion site, or as a site that is a critical biodiversity area. So it's a really good way for us to try and visualize how we look at that. This is just, again, just another screenshot to give you an idea of what the output of the tool is. This is an operation, a platinum operation up near Mokopane, Mogalakwena. And again, we've just taken Limpopo's conservation plan, and you can see some of those critical biodiversity areas and how it overlays in terms of the mining license area, but in particular where we need to try and see and match some of those sensitive features. And what we do then is a site can then access this. They can then pull out from the tool what are some of those significant biodiversity features. And it's part of a value assessment. And so each site, there's a requirement in our standard that a site needs to have identified these. And if we look at the little, the sort of graphic on the left in terms of understanding what a biodiversity type is, what those specific components could be, and then the attributes of those components. And this is what some of these, or the tools, and obviously what we can get off these data sets and layers. And that helps us identify what we call a significant biodiversity feature. And there's just a couple of examples I've put in there, and they're not all related to each other. So you could potentially have Lydenburg montane grassland that obviously comes up as a sensitive feature. And as we know, grassland within the Highveld in South Africa is already identified as a significant habitat. But then in that, you can potentially have some species that are utilizing that type. So we could have a target around, what is it around Cape vultures that use that particular type, and what are some of the indicators? If we say, well, if we can increase the number of juveniles or the number of breeding females out of that, that can then be used as an indicator or a target for us to deliver a positive biodiversity outcome. And there's, examples around, bat species, and even some of the terrestrial species that are included there. So this is part of the assessment that a site then does, and it uses the output of the tool to manage, as I said, both risk and opportunity. And it is a requirement that even if you have a site that has been, it's licensed and it's been operating, if there's any planned new footprint disturbance, in other words, suddenly we need to put in a new power line, or there needs to be a new access road, or they're looking to expand the waste rock dump or some of the tailings facilities, the requirement is that the site then goes back in and uses the tool just to make sure that there are no other sensitive features in sites that could potentially be impacted. And apologies, the images are a little bit small, but we're all very familiar about what happened with Rio Tinto in Australia in terms of the heritage site that was impacted. And this actually is a site in and around Mogalakwena, and there's a significant feature there that is a heritage site. It's the Matlotlo Hills. You can see it indicated in red there. And so very important that the mine knows about that and make sure that they have an avoidance set up, and there's actually a buffer. You can actually see the buffer zone that's drawn around that to make sure that we don't impact on any of these sites. What's really helpful is also the tool produces a report, and again, very similar to what Dion was sort of saying, but not probably to the level of detail that's there. So the site can then actually run the analysis, do the buffer in terms of where the predicted impact could be, select a number of layers that they can potentially look at. And you can also import layers either as KML or shapefiles as defined by your area of interest. And then it obviously also makes sure that it gives this output to the site that they can actually look at and share to say, there is an opportunity. There happens to be a number of IUCN red listed species, or interestingly, species that could potentially be data deficient. And so that's an opportunity to say, if we can, maybe get involved in terms of changing the status of either that particular species or even habitat type, then that could be a positive outcome. And importantly, the partnerships component here is really, really key. And so we need to make sure that what we're doing links into any of these regional partnerships or regional initiatives that are happening in and around the area. And rather than, in the past being very insular and sort of isolated in terms of, this is our mining license area and this is the only bit that we're going to be worried about. So it's something that we're looking at in terms of how do we demonstrate that we are being nature positive, as we call it, or becoming nature positive. And part of it is setting some of these targets. And so you'll see down the left-hand side there, very much a sort of an ESG focused commitment and requirement. And you'll see it's coming out certainly in a lot of the call for action, as I said, with the lead up to COP this year. One, it is assess, and we need to use spatial data to help us identify those features. What do we do with that data is important to interpret and prioritize where and who we can potentially collaborate and get involved with. A lot of it is then obviously set up in terms of, the measurement, and obviously for us to disclose on that from a reporting perspective. So we measure against the baseline, and we need to, we need to set some of those bold targets, and then be able to say year on year, this is where we are in terms of meeting those commitments. Another key aspect there is obviously to act. And again, we need to commit, no net loss is really, that's sort of 15 years ago. That's business as usual. We're never going to be able to deliver on some of the international commitments, and certainly the sort of post-2020 biodiversity framework, if we don't have much more bold and stretch targets. And so this is where we're getting to in terms of net positive and a nature positive outcome. And then importantly to track, and using spatial data, using the data that we can pull out of these national data sets, and generating big data will help us then work on some of those indicators. And the little graphic on the right there just gives you an example of, as I said, what we look at is not only those traditional threatened and endangered species. If we just took a data deficient species, and or maybe potentially a vegetation type, if the action that we've identified is to say, if we can assist with potentially some primary research on that particular species, that can help then change its status from, let's say, from data deficient to least threatened or maybe even vulnerable, that's a positive outcome. And so that output then gets fed back into the conservation strategy or the action plan of the province, and potentially within our national and BSEPs, and ultimately deliver a positive impact. So that's just an example of how we use the outputs or the data that we get out of these assessments in order for us to set some bold targets that we can deliver on, above and beyond your standard ESG reporting requirements. And then just my last slide is just really around how important it is for partnerships and collaboration. And so the data that we use within the tool, it's obviously based on the UN Environment Programme. We've got a membership with Proteus, and you'll see the members below Proteus there, obviously mining focused, but a number of really significant companies that are committed to this. A strong partnership with IUCN, and then obviously through IBAT, getting access to all of the data and the layers. Again, as I said, we're very fortunate within South Africa with SANBI, some amazing information and layers that we can pull off there. But in some of the regions and the areas that we operate, there is nothing. And so this is our go-to in terms of data that we use to visualize within our biodiversity overlay assessment tool. So yeah, that's the end of my slides. Hopefully it gives you a sense of what we're doing, and hopefully can showcase this within, not only within the mining industry, but I think in terms of all business sectors, in terms of South Africa, and just hopefully build on some of these partnerships, and also working with Esri to tweak and get it improved. Thank you, Simpiwe.
Oh, thanks a lot, Warwick, and we really appreciate this presentation. It's actually quite exciting to see that there is such development and such leadership coming from one of our giants in terms of the mining sector, and it's great to see such a thoughtful approach on how you want to make use of our technology to actually enhance your business requirements. It's quite an exciting thing to see. And again, Warwick is still going to join us at the end of this, towards the end of this session. If you have any questions towards him, please drop some questions in our Q&A box. And we welcome any question at this point, and really appreciate your time again, Warwick. Thank you. And now, I will be passing it back to you, Johnny. I know you have some other questions to our viewers, to those who are attending today.
We've got a second audience poll. So again, same as before, the question will come up on your screen, and this one I believe is a multiple choice question. Yes, it is indicated, and it is essentially, where do you see GIS adding more value in ESG standards for your organization? So again, we'll give you 30 seconds to answer. Just a reminder that it is a multiple choice. I can see there are some questions, some answers that are already coming in. There's a race on my screen. It's quite interesting to view it from this point of view.
Yeah.
All right, I think we can give them another 10 seconds.
The numbers are creeping in faster.
All right, 5 more seconds and then we'll close the poll. All right, they're crunching the final numbers. Let's have a look. So the results, all of the above. So GIS, well, at least the people that are attending believe that it can add quite a bit in ESG standards, with 66% saying all of the above. And then after that, a 22% integrate with other systems for a holistic view of ESG. Yes, I mean, I would agree with that. And then the other two pretty close in third and fourth place. Nobody said hard to tell, so that's always good news to see that at least we get some clear answers. Thank you very much. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Johnny. I really appreciate that. And yeah. And now it is our next presenter. Basically, Johnny is going to be coming up next again. When he's going to cover what Esri is actually doing, especially around the environmental part when it comes to compliance. There are some exciting initiatives as South Africa we've been engaging in. So I will pass it over to him again to take us through the work that Esri is actually involved in.
All right, we would have had our presentation now, so I'm going to ask you now for a third poll. So one after the other, similar to the previous one, but this one is with regards to what your biggest challenges are in ESG. Again, you've got multiple choice, so please select the ones that apply to you best. And yeah, you can start voting. You can start answering. We'll give you 30 seconds for that one. All right, I see the numbers coming in. Give it another 10 seconds.
Yeah.
All right. And that's everybody. We'll close the poll. Let's crunch those numbers and see. Wow, this is pretty even. So 36% are saying data management and governance. Close 30% analysis and reporting. 33% data and information workflow in general, and data collection. So it's a pretty good spread.
Yeah.
10, 11, 12 answers for each of those top three. So I think we've got our work cut out for us.
Yeah, say that again.
Obviously, we've got no more excuses anymore, so we've got to look into that. Okay, yeah. Great, fantastic.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny, for that. And one thing maybe just to bring across, I know in our program we did say we were going to have pivot systems, as I mentioned earlier. that our presenter, unfortunately, he was hoping to be in a better connection. He's in West Africa, somewhere in Guinea. So he couldn't participate today, but the exciting thing is that the work that we are doing with them behind the scenes, where they are busy working on bringing in the Esri technology into their system, which their system is mainly focused on, has been mainly focused on occupational health, but now they're expanding it all across the ESG. The person that was going to be presenting is actually an ESG advisor from Pivot Systems or IBIS Tech Technology. But we hope that you will be able to be available next time should we have a similar engagement around ESGs. But with that being said, if you happen to come across Pivot Systems, just know that we have a good relationship that we're busy forging with them as we go forward. So one thing now, obviously, is to pass it over to Johnny to take us through what Esri Esri South Africa is doing, as I mentioned earlier. Johnny, I think you would be the best person to tell your story when it comes to this one. I will pass it over to you. Thanks.
Right, perfect. Thank you, Spirit. All right. So what I'm going to be discussing today and talking to you about is the environmental monitoring solution called Remus Online. Now, some of you might already be familiar with it, already be using it, but we thought this would be a good platform to launch the Remus Online version of Remus. So the first thing that we'll start with is why. So how can Remus assist you? Now, if any of these questions are relevant to you, then Remus might be relevant. Are you monitoring various points or environmental indicators? These could be weather stations, lab reports, or might currently be in Excel or CSV format, or even might be coming from a consultant. Are you coping with high data volumes that are coming from your monitoring points? Are there too many formats that you're perhaps dealing with, and this might be affecting your team's collaborating efficiency, and even have a large number or large volumes of data that is manually moving from the field to the office? Do you know what you have to report on? Do you know what those frequencies of reporting is? And these could be for environmental compliance, government or statutory bodies, or even be to the communities around your operations. So, if so, how often is this reporting happening? Does it require you to continuously have visibility? Do these reports have to come out at specific times, quarterly, monthly, or even on a weekly basis? And is generating these reports done easily? Are you required to manually extract the data and analyze every single time and start that process from scratch? And lastly, are you confident in your reporting methods, in your data governance, and specifically in your data accuracy? So if any of these questions apply to you and sound familiar, then Remus can help you with those. So what does Remus offer? So the first thing is that it provides integrity. This is through controlled and secure access to your authoritative data, as well as your information, as well as compare historical records. This allows for or eliminates the manual data collection and all these manual analysis methods. Compliance will become much easier through the configurable reporting and apply statutory guidelines or even company guidelines through templates which are available and which you can configure. And you'll be using the latest technology with various options to use Remus. Remus Online that we're talking about today is a SaaS option, but this can be modified based on your requirements. And these are web-based and mobile-ready solutions. And lastly, your user experience. It can be customized to specifically suit your needs with custom websites, notice board notifications, and quick reporting. So how does Remus achieve these goals? So it's first through data exploration. So you'll have instant access to your latest monitoring data on an interactive map with various search and filter capabilities, and all your monitoring locations will be visible, as well as access to your historical readings for those specific monitoring points. Also, you can manage your data. You'll be importing your lab results, logger data, which might be connected via IoT to your field monitoring points, and you'll also be able to create and manage your own custom parameters. Your reporting is made easy by creating customized regulation compliant reports that you can run at any time. You can choose the time period, the location, the parameter, and you'll have more options to refine those reports. And you can, of course, gain insights. You can create and share live and interactive dashboards for internal and external stakeholders, such as the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries, the Department of Water and Sanitation, as well as Mineral Resources and Energy, and your internal stakeholders that might need to gain insights into what is happening. So let's talk a little bit more about the SaaS, Remus Online subscription levels. So there are 3 basic subscription levels: basic, standard, and advanced. The main differences between the various options is the amount of monitoring points, starting at 200 going up to about 5,000 monitoring points. The number of editor licenses will also increase with an increase in your subscription, and it starts at 1 license going up to 5. And lastly, there's also an increase in functionality with more being added as you go up each level. In the event that you require more monitoring points, editor licenses, or even reports, I encourage you to contact us, and we can arrange for something to be set up. There are other options which we can explore, but rather let us know if this doesn't exactly fit into what you're looking for in terms of your subscription level. Then you can contact us on the website. You can submit a query there. Spiro, I think, will be happy to take your call. But yes, get in contact with us. Let's see what we can do for you if this does not exactly fit you. But Remus Online, essentially, as we said, is offered as a SaaS. Esri South Africa will manage the hardware and the software components. You won't be required to purchase any of those components to run Remus. You will be provided with a username and a password. You'll use that to log into the solution. And this takes away the need to manage any of the hardware. You simply log in and you start using the system. Now, speaking of the website, we will have a look at that quickly now. So the Remus website, we will share the link with you. It essentially contains all the information that we've discussed now, some of the functionality, what it can do for you, and then who else is using it. There's 1 or 2 case studies there that you can go through and see if that talks to your requirements. And then again, there's an overview of the different options that you have for Remus Online. And lastly, there is a "Can I sign up?" question there, where you can enter your details. Please, you can also use this for any information that you might require further. On the top, you will also see there is a "Take a Look" button, and that can give you an opportunity to sample Remus and see what that looks like. So here's what that dashboard looks like. Again, please go and have a look, play around a little bit with some of the metrics. The map is an interactive map, so you can go and you can select a point and get a feel for it. You can see some of the capabilities, uploading photos, some of the attribute information. So have a look, let us know what you think, and if you are interested, please get in touch with us. That covers my presentation for today. Thank you very much for your attention. And yes, I think Spiro, off to you for Q&A.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Johnny. This was quite an exciting to see, exciting moment to see that as South Africa, we are doing our best to also assist our customers in addressing their compliance challenges, as the likes of the department, also the likes of Anglo-American are working hard as well on their part to engage with their internal stakeholders. As now we are moving over to our next session, which is a Q&A session. I would like to request all our panelists to actually join us in this. And because we have some few questions, Johnny, I'm seeing a couple of people are asking questions.
Yes, I see Warwick has answered a few of them.
Yeah.
So thanks Warwick for that.
Yeah.
So please have a look at Warwick's answers to those questions. I believe that we've got a question for Dion.
Yeah, maybe we can start with that. And Dion, if I believe you saw the question there coming from one of the attendees, and she's asking about whether is it possible to pull the layers that you were showing in your screening tool to be used further by someone outside of that screening tool. I don't know if you have any response to that, Dion.
Yes, thanks, Sipiwe. On this one, yes, great question. I think we get these type of questions quite often in terms of the users wanting access to the data itself. In the screening tool or on the screening tool platform, we do not provide the option to, for example, download the whole national layer, for example, the whole field crop boundary layer from agriculture, for example. We prefer users, if they are interested in the national layer, to rather engage with the custodian of the data and make that their first important stop and get it directly from the custodian itself. But what you can do in the screening tool, as I indicated, the creation of the site, you can actually on the screening tool download the relevant sensitivity data for that site as a KML file or as a zipped shape file. So for the site-specific data, yes, the screening tool can definitely assist there. And would you actually would like to have more access to better data sets, then rather contact the custodian. We, for example, Forestry, Fisheries and Environment is the custodian or supporting custodian for the protected areas. And you are always more than welcome to get it from us or even download it from our Aegis website. I hope that answers Andiswa's question.
Oh, thanks, Dion. I believe so too. Thank you very much. But Andiswa, if you feel your question is not answered to your satisfaction, you can still drop in some notification for us. But I believe from what Dion has actually put across does cover most part of the question. Maybe for the benefit of those who are watching us via YouTube, Johnny, it's not a bad thing for Warwick as well to come in and just elaborate in explaining the answer that he has provided in our Q&A box. So the question was, are the automated reports generated from ArcGIS desktop or web? So I think, Warwick, you did answer. I'm not sure if you would want to reiterate your answer.
So one of the requirements of the tool, and this is the work that we did with the Esri team, is to make sure that we get around, users having to have an Esri desktop license or an application. And while that's great, in a lot of instances, it's tied into licenses, and so you often had people on site and in the field not being able to access it because it was something that they had to get a software application to go through in terms of their sort of managers and whoever it was. So we wanted an online tool, and this was the sort of widget or the tool that Esri presented to us to say it's available online. You don't need any desktop application at all. As long as you've got an internet connection, you can access the tool. You can then pull in the layers that you can. I mean, importantly, and maybe one of the other questions is, you can, as long as you've got a layer that's either available as a KML file or as a shape file, you can visualize that and add that to your own set of layers. So for instance, if you've had a specialist that's gone out and done a really good sort of baseline study potentially for an EIA, and they've got all of the shape file, they can actually give that to you. You can then use that, visualize it within the tool online, and then apply any of the mitigation around that. And the report then is obviously generated directly from the tool, so it's online. What's also great is that we've built in to make sure that the layers and the information that we get is updated on a monthly basis. So every month, 15th of the month, it'll then go in and reference any of those layers or those data sets that we are using, so that we know we're using the most up-to-date spatial data layers available.
Oh, thanks a lot, Warwick. I think that has been the atmosphere when it comes to all industries, where people want to have access to GIS in a much more simplified way. I think that drive from your side to say you would want people to be able to use a normal web browser to access this information and be able to either use their mobile devices, wherever they are, without any limitations. I think that is quite an exciting thing to see, Johnny. I believe that is what we as Esri as well, we always strive for.
And that's why the move to the Azure platform, I think, is, again, I think, Dion mentioned as well, we've seen that having to have heavily reliant on some of your data portals itself, either within a company or an organization, whereas moving that now to sort of a cloud platform like Azure, I think is going to help us streamline a lot of the access issues.
Yeah, and it's quite exciting, and I think that part as well ties nicely to the fact that the IT in the mining sector is starting to see the value of using these cloud solutions, where they are no longer as tight as they used to be, which is quite exciting to see. And thanks for that, Warwick. Thanks
I see
Johnny.
Another question for Warwick. So Warwick, I'm not sure if you've seen it. I'll just read it out loud. Thank you, Warwick, for the very interesting presentation. I've just a question on the 2030 goal that has been set. What happens in case where the goal is not met by the set time? Has that happened before?
Great question. And I think, this is where it's come to in terms of some of the, I guess, the retrospective assessments that we need to do. So how do we go back, for an example, within some of our iron ore operations in the Northern Cape, or even some of the old historical De Beers operations that have been around, for 120 years. I mean, I think everybody understands, we can't go back, 125 years and say, okay, can we try and undo some of those potential negative impacts that we have had? But importantly, we need to be able to address them. And so, this is a critical part around how we look at a mine's restoration and rehabilitation program. What can be done? I mean, yes, it's probably a lot easier for a new project, or a project that's about to start, to say, these are some of the targets that we are setting and needing to set. And it's important to be able to, yes, they need to be bold, they need to be stretch targets, but we need to be able to make sure that we honestly think that we can achieve some of them. And there are instances where we've got, operations and sites that will meet some of those goals before 2030. There are going to be some sites that are not going to be able to do it, just because of the fact that, we all know it's not like an engineering solution that you can just say, well, in order to reduce the amount of energy consumption or water consumption, we've come up with a measure. Biodiversity and the sort of ecosystem component, it takes many, many years to adapt and to change. And so we've got to be, we've got to stand up to some of those commitments, but we've also got to be able to share some of the successes, but also share some of the challenges that we have, and be open and transparent and honest enough to say, this is where we're struggling. And I think the more that we can collaborate and share data and share information in terms of what we're trying to achieve, the more we can get other companies to join. That ultimately, I think we will then be able to meet some of these goals and targets.
And then, Spiwe, I see there's also a question for us, posted by Anonymous. So this is with regards to Remus capability. I'm currently using Remus Enterprise. Is there a difference in capability of Remus Enterprise and Remus Online? So I'll take that one. So the answer is no, there isn't a difference in terms of capability. So the functionality you'll get for what you're using now and the online one is the exact same. The difference between the two is how you access it and how it is deployed. So currently, Remus Enterprise, which is the on-premises one, which some of our older users might be using, you are hosting that, you are administering that, you're responsible for the hardware and the software and all of that. Remus Online provides an easier platform where you don't manage any of that. You just get a username and a password, and then off you go. You insert those in a browser. You can use just about any browser, Firefox or Edge or Chrome, and off you go. So it's got to do with the deployment, and not with any of the functionality that Remus provides. It's one product and the same across.
Yeah, right. Perfect. Yeah, I think thanks, Johnny, and thanks as well, Warwick and Dion. I think there was one question that came across there, Warwick. I think it has to do with, I think you did answer it in our Q&A space, which it talks, would you be able to add more layers to the tool, e.g. land use, change, bench scars, carbon storage potential, and so forth. I think you did answer that, but I don't know if you want to add more on into it.
No, and I think this is an important part of you know, how we want to visualize data. And, you know, as you say, I mean, there's a wealth of information out there, and ironically, it's often in the hands of potentially some of the sort of scientific community and the community that are dealing with some of this sort of biodiversity and conservation issues on the ground. And often you can't make that connection between that and the sort of private sector in a company. And so it's important to make these layers and this data information available. Platforms like GBIF, are growing, and there's a lot more companies that are providing data that they are collecting through ESIAs and specialist field studies, making sure that this data is available so that we can then add it. And so you don't duplicate effort in terms of, two neighboring developments doing exactly the same work around a particular feature, or, when in actual fact we should be sharing it. So yeah, if it's available, and you've got to obviously go through some data sharing agreements, but importantly, we need to be able to visualize that so that we can, maximize the functionality of the tool.
100%. Yeah, thanks for that, Johnny. I don't know if there's anything that you're seeing from your side.
No, I think that's all the questions that have been posted. If there are further questions, you're welcome to contact us, and we'll get in touch with the presenters, and then we'll get that information to you.
Yes. Okay, I'm seeing one coming through quickly now, yes. as Warwick was answering. I believe also, Dion, from your side, I don't know if you have any comment, or based on some of the engagements that Warwick has been coming across as well, if you have anything you want to share across.
I think from my side, Spiwe, just also going back to Andiswa, yes, you're more than welcome to send us an email on that email address that I referred to at the beginning, screening@environment.gov.za, and we can address aspects such as the ArcGIS Pro or ArcMap, usage of data, access to maybe ArcGIS server type of map services that's available. I noticed that she indicated that she's interested in the derived output, but I think we can easily discuss that offline, because I think many of the users might be different needs or uses that they actually see when we present on platforms such as these. And I think a last comment that I just want to make is also to thank Esri for all the support on the screening tool so far. It was a great venture. It's actually a live product that's still growing. You have to deal with larger data sets, extra data sets. Users are so interested in what's next. Are you adding this? Do you have better that? So it's a live product, and it's growing all the time. And I think that's what it will also experience. You start with something and it grows.
Yeah, 100%.
I see we've got one more question.
Oh, all right.
You seem to be quite popular today. I'm just going to slip in one question there from Sue. Warwick, is the data all being fed into the state of environment reporting? I think if you can touch on that quickly for us.
Yeah, I'm assuming that so this potentially sort of company data, or maybe data that we might be getting access to either through specialist studies and other sort of areas. So hopefully the answer is yes. As I say, I mean, what some of the initiatives that we're looking at in terms of the areas in which we operate is supporting either a species or a conservation grant, and so it's not tied to either a particular operation. And so, for example, if we're operating in the Northern Cape and there's an opportunity to do some research within the Northern Cape on either a habitat or a species, that's something that we would look at. And then absolutely, we need to make sure that data is getting fed into either a provincial level conservation plan, and ultimately at a national level, so part of the NBSAP. So that's where the target setting is key in terms of making sure that an initiative that we are getting involved in or interested in has links back to both national and regional initiatives. So hopefully that does answer the question, Sue. But otherwise, yeah, I feel I'm sure we can share email after this Simpiwe. I'm happy to take a few questions as well.
All right. Thanks a lot, Warwick, for availing yourself. We really appreciate this. And yeah, it is indeed a great opportunity to actually see what you've been working on and the great work you are doing, and we really appreciate that. And to you, Dion, as well. I'm not sure, Warwick, I know Dion has made his final remarks. I don't know if you have anything else you would want to put across as your final remarks before we wrap up our session today.
I'll just put in a chat. I mean, I think, you know, there's another really interesting project that we're working together with the Endangered Wildlife Trust around, and again, and this is completely open. It's not something that we want to, you know, keep within Anglo American. The important thing is to partner with them, and they're actually partnering with SANBI, and it is obviously quite critical in terms of some of that species. So the detail of the project is in the chat function there as well. But yeah, I mean, you know, the whole idea around collaboration and partnerships is key. So if there's anything that anybody sees they'd like to, you know, potentially get involved in, or have any questions, I mean, you know, we're not in this alone. You know, we would welcome criticism, we would welcome ideas and partnerships. So yeah, an open call. Thanks to you, and thank you. Thanks to Esri for the invite.
All right, brilliant. Thanks a lot, Warwick. That is leadership. Those are the values of being a leader, and we really appreciate that. And thank you, both of you, for allowing yourselves to actually be part of this session and share what you were working on. We really appreciate your time. We truly appreciate it so much. And I believe those who are attending today, they've drawn some good inspiration to take things forward. And which is the aim of this meeting, is for this meeting to actually encourage others in their own little corners to see that actually there are other people that are pushing some initiatives that may be similar to what they are doing. So we really thank you for that. And as we are about to close our meeting, and again, we always make this call that for those who are interested to share their stories, please do contact us. This is a user group. It's not an Esri thing. It's about you as users to share your stories. So and encourage others. That is one thing that if you're going to be doing things on your own, it's going to be always a struggle. But the more you engage with other people and start seeing what other people think and how they're seeing your project, that also gives you a kind of encouragement. And as Warwick was also kept on hinting, is the fact that this is more of opening up for collaboration, for opening up for some kind of criticism or some kind of motivation to do your work. So we will be inviting others as well as we go forward. We're still open to actually encourage those who are interested to join our committee to actually do so. Get in touch with me or Johnny or even Richard, because he's also part of this team. Today we just decided to take him out of the front screen to only be us, but that is the value that we're actually working on, is to make sure that the users of the Esri technology see the benefit of community. So as we're going to be going forward, as we said previously, this is the second mark of 4 marks that we're planning for the year. So as we plan to have 1 mark per quarter, so in the next quarter we will have in the next mark, we're still going to be bouncing our ideas with the committee that is currently in place. But as I said, if you would want to join us and be part of the committee, let us know. So we'll be bouncing what we're thinking, and see how best we can actually bring together that mining meeting that we're planning to have in the next quarter. So the next quarter is starting soon. So I know it's always a headache for Lauren to make sure that everything runs smoothly. But I must say she does quite an exciting job, John, here. Okay. Yeah. All right. So this is it. Thank you, and may you have a wonderful day ahead, and the rest of the week. Enjoy it, and hope to see you soon. If you have any questions on anything that was raised today, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. We will make sure that we link you up to with the right channels. We're happy to assist you as much as we can. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful. I don't know if Johnny, you want to.
Nothing from my side. Thank you to everybody for attending and presenting.
All right, brilliant. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.